Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Hanukkah is an amazing opportunity to ask very important questions. And this evening, tonight, this uplighting, the idea of having a get in the zone before a Chag is a unique opportunity to refine our ability to appreciate what the Chag is. And I believe that this is a beautiful way of memorializing Mr. Edmond Safra, alav hashalom. We're celebrating his life by sharing what he valued so much. A burning light, bringing happiness to people's lives, to share Torah to those that needed it most, to create an environment where we as Jews are able to celebrate the richness of our heritage and appreciate the depth and values of our community and Torah. Now, we live in a generation where there are too many people, too many religious people even, that celebrate and all kinds of things without really appreciating why they do what they do. I'm not only speaking about our community, I'm speaking about all communities. There was a headline in a news article from many years ago that stood out. It came out around this time. It says like this: Vatican City, reporting from Rome. They're building on its ties with Israel in its efforts to reconcile Roman Catholics and Jews. The Vatican celebrated Hanukkah for the first time on Tuesday, lighting a candle in a sheltered garden where popes have strolled for centuries. There's much darkness in the world around us. There's much need for light, declared Cardinal Edward Cassidy before lighting the candle before the Pope. Now, can you imagine for a moment, you're in Vatican City, you're standing there in this outside of the Sistine Chapel, the garden that's right outside of it, and you have a Chanukiah over there. Not too far from there, if you go a little bit outside of the Colosseum, there is a massive arch called the Arch of Titus, and in it, it has this famous depiction of Roman soldiers coming in and destroying the temple and carrying out the Menorah. As a matter of fact, the minhag in Rome for many years, for hundreds of years, was to every year on the anniversary of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, they would force the local Jews to walk through the arch and remind them of their loss. And that Chanukiah was a constant reminder of that sadness, of the loss of the Beit HaMikdash, the embarrassment of being a people that were chosen but now reduced to a small group of people that are bent over backwards, unhappy, lost in exile, and so on and so forth. But the Romans decide, these cardinals decide that they're going to remember and join forces by lighting a Chanukiah. The Chanukiah was the symbol of our triumph over the Greeks, over their ancestors. And they're lighting it. Jews are also guilty, very guilty, of doing all sorts of things without fully appreciating. So what I would like to do tonight is double-click on some of the things that the Chashuv Rabbanim before me, Rabbi Hajioff, Rabbi Mizrahi, shared a little bit, because it's very hard to speak about ideas and not have some overlap, but I'm going to take it in a different direction. So, the Gemara asks a question, my Hanukkah? That's a strange question to ask. What do you mean, what is Hanukkah? It's a weird question. Like, you don't see the Gemara asking, my Shabbat. The Gemara is not asking, my Pesach, what is Pesach? It's not asking us, what is Sukkot, what is Shavuot? But it recognizes, the Chachamim recognize there's something strange and unique about this holiday that we have to ask the question, what is it? What are we celebrating? And then the Gemara goes through a list of all sorts of things that, we experience in the history of that particular time. Now, the mitzvah is to light a small candle, right, your candelabra Chanukiah, outside of your home, which is also kind of strange. Normally, you would do that, something of religious in nature, was something that was private. It was something that you would do inside your home and not outside. We would reserve a practice for an internal expression of religiosity and not necessarily an external show of religiosity. Even tzitzit, which today is so visible externally, back in the day, people wore tzitzit, but they wore long coats, you didn't see it. Jews were able to recognize them, but not necessarily because of their levush, their clothing, but more so because of the area that they lived in. But Jews always kept their practice very private. Most of what we did was in our home. You think about it. Pesach, the holiday where we teach our children about Jewish identity. It's not at the home, not in the Bet Knesset. It's not done here. So many of our services that take place in the home. Sukkot, 7 days in a sukkah, in the home. Everything is internal, not external. But here you have a holiday where we're asking you to take something from within your house and place it outside your door. And to be honest, it's a little embarrassing. It's a little Chanukiah. Okay, this is nice. Okay, I don't have this in my house. But you have like a little Chanukiah outside your door. The minhag in Eretz Yisrael is the truth is even here. There are some people that have like a glass case. You leave it outside your door. But you're welcome to come to my neighborhood. And I have some awesome, beautiful homes in my neighborhood. And some of my neighbors have these fantastic lights in preparation to celebrate their holiday. And it's very different. And it's certainly not Nebi. There are these beautiful teardrop lights around their gutters. And a King Kong-sized snowman that's automated and it's moving, and there's a record playing that's playing music all night. It's nonstop. It's flashing. There's laser lights that happen every couple of hours. They're on the night of Christmas. They have fireworks that go off in the back of their home. And what am I doing to celebrate my holiday of Persumed Dinisa? I'm going in and celebrating this special holiday, and I want to share the miracle of the holiday. I'm taking a little candle, a little drop of oil, and I'm putting it outside my door. Do we have it all wrong? Why are we doing that? And then, as the Gemara continues and tells us about this idea of my Hanukkah, it goes through the story, the Maccabees fighting the war, the battle that was there, but no mention of the miracle of the war, the fact that the odds were uniquely against us, that a group of priests. Now, if you were betting, if we had an opportunity we had a spread, and we were going to bet, and you had two teams. You had team Yavan Greeks, okay, you had the Greeks, and you had team Maccabees. Now, the Maccabees were a group of Kohanim. The Kohanim were not the guys going to the gym and studying the art of war. They weren't prepared from the little children to learn how to use a sword and a spear. It was a suicide match. There was no way the Maccabees were going to win this war. You would not have betted for them. There was no way they were winning. So what were they thinking? And the Gemara doesn't even mention the fact that itself was a miracle. No mention of it. Why not? The Gemara says that in those days, we have a reason to be lehalel and to have hoda'ah. So let me ask a couple of questions, try to clarify, and hopefully walk away with some insight into what we're going to be doing tomorrow night and for the 7 days that follow it. So, question number one, in contradistinction to our celebrating of little lights versus our neighbors' great bright lights, why are we doing that? Why do we celebrate Persumed Nisa in the way we do, in a very modest and humble way? The Talmud tells us about the story of Chanukah, but mentions nothing about the miracle. The question is, why not? Even in the Al Hanisim, you don't see anything there about the Nes. We're celebrating a miracle of the oil. Are we celebrating the miracle of a battle? What exactly is the celebration about? And then the Gemara says that this holiday is for praise, for Hallel, and thanksgiving. And the question is, what's the difference between praise and thanksgiving? We say it all the time, thank you. Praise, well, what's the difference? What does the Gemara actually want? How do we understand those two concepts? So let's go for a ride. What does the word hoda'ah mean? The word hoda'ah, if you look at the root of the word hoda'ah, you also have the word in there, vidui, right? You have confession. And the question is, what does a confession have to do with being thankful? It's a strange connection, right? We also have the word Yehudah in there, right? What does vidui have to do with hoda'ah? What does confession have to do with thanksgiving? So let's go through it for a moment. Thanksgiving means that I'm thanking you because of something that I do not deserve. When you are saying thank you, I am saying thank you to you because I truly, I come home and I have a beautiful meal that's put out for me. Stunning, gorgeous. It's not like thanks. I'm saying thank you because I know I don't deserve that. I did nothing for it. And I want to feel a sense of gratitude and share a gratitude when I say that thank you to my wife. If you say thank you because you're entitled to something, that doesn't mean much. But when you say thank you, it should leave you for a moment and humble you and ask yourself, am I deserving of this? Because if you lend someone money and they pay you back that money, do you thank them? You don't have to thank them for that. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Right? You could praise them and say, thank you so much for giving this to me on time. But you're not really doing, there's no hoda'ah over there. There's no thanksgiving over there. He has an obligation to give you the money back. You don't have to thank him for that. He has a chiyuv. But when it comes to praising someone, praise someone for whatever you want. So the confession is a degree that's supposed to get you into a degree of worthlessness. You're supposed to feel a sense of humility. You're supposed to have a little bit of anava when you say thank you. I am not deserving of this. I acknowledge that I am not deserving, and I confess it before you, but I'm still saying thank you. Okay? I experienced something that you've created for me, but I don't even deserve it. Hallel, I praise I praise you for all the great things that you do, irrespective if I benefited from it or not. That's amazing. Now, in our prayers, in our tefillah, we say hoda'ah in modim. We thank you, Lord. Thank you, Hashem. And what we're saying over there in that modim is we're confessing that we are not worthy of everything that you have done for us. We are not worthy of all the great things that you have created for us. And we say on the miracles, right, Al Nisim, would we be thanking God for that? Would we be thanking God for the miracles of the oil and Al Nisim? Why would we thank God? Is it proper to be thanking God for the miracle of the oil? Because you and I haven't had any benefit from it. Why would we be thanking Him for that? Where's our unique benefit from the miracle of the oil? We have a benefit from the miracle of the war. The fact that a small group of Jews were able to overcome a mighty army. You have to understand the Greeks were at the top of their game. They walked into Persia. They walked through the Babylonians. There was like a hot knife through butter. There was no army that could stop them. There was nothing could get in their way. So how would these little Jews even be able to overcome this? What were they thinking? Impossible. But because of that battle, because of their unique power, unique ability to be focused and recognize the importance of the time, that this was do or die, and the fact that they won, I have a sense of hodah. I'm grateful for that. We would not be who we are today if they didn't win that war. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today if they didn't win that war. Now, what's interesting is that the miracle, which is nice, but doesn't really change anything for me. It's a nice thing that happened. We appreciate the fact that miracles happen, but it wouldn't change my identity. Miracles happen all the time. But if we think of the whole entire story of Hanukkah, what was actually accomplished, the feat of these little Jews overcoming these powerful army, that changed everything. They were made up of a bunch of nerdy yeshiva boys, okay, with their rabbis coming along with their books, fighting against these swords and spears. What were they thinking? We say hoda'ah and we thank God for this. But we can't really do that unless we spend a moment and feel a sense of humility and confess that we're not deserving of this, but we're so grateful for this. Now, in the hoda'ah, right, there's no mention of oil. Okay, so we understand why. In the halal, I'm praising God for the miracles. The miracles of the oil was a great miracle. Now, we have to understand what this miracle of the oil was, because I have a real problem with this oil stuff, this expansion of oil, this growing oil that lasted for so long. Because the Gemara is very specific about what kind of oil you're supposed to use for the Chanukah. What kind of oil you're supposed to use? Shemen zayit, zach. Now, what kind of oil is that? You take an olive, you crush it. That first drop of oil is the only oil you can use to make this jug of oil. That's it. Right? Very specific. And now you're telling me there was a great miracle and that all of a sudden this oil grew more oil. But who says I'm allowed to use miracle oil, miracle expanding oil to light my menorah? Who says I'm allowed to do that? It's very specific. The halakha says I'm supposed to use shemen zayit zach. Who says I could go ahead and take oil, miracle oil, and use that for lighting? Is that even kosher? Where's the hashgacha on that? But like oil as a fuel and energy, there's lots of issues we have with these things, even today in our time today. Energy is a major issue today. And these issues of energy go way back till the year of 1798. You have someone by the name of Thomas Robert Malthus. He predicted that there will be short-term gains in living standards, and that inevitably the humanity population would grow and it would outstrip food production, and that we would not have enough resources to sustain England at the time. And England was like the flagship, economy. It was driving everything on planet Earth. Then you have in 1865 someone by the name of Stanley Jevons, who predicted that the coal reserve of the world only has a few more years, and then we're going to run out of coal. No more trains. Not enough energy in the world. In 1914, the U.S. Bureau of Mines predicted that the U.S. only had 10 years of oil reserve left. This is 1914. That means by 1924, no more oil for the U.S. And here we are. Somehow there was a miracle and it just kept expanding. In 1939 and 1951, both times, the U.S. Department of Interior predicted that the U.S. oil reserve only has 13 years left of oil. Thought I could still buy gas in Exxon, right? I still have oil. As a matter of fact, oil prices have come down tremendously. There's so much oil in the markets today that we don't know. Oil companies are going broke because they can't sell oil. There's so much of it. In 1972, an MIT research group using computer simulations, this is the first time they're using real AI. They wrote a report called the Limits to Growth, and they said that economic and population growth with a finite supply of resources, that by the year 1990, we would deplete all the U.S. oil, there would be no more oil in America. Gone. Chalas. Dunsky. No more. Right? So now, why is it that there's like almost 200 years of history here of these very intelligent people making all kinds of predictions about the resources that we have, the fuel, the consumption, we're going to run out of it. How do they get it all wrong? What do they do? How do they get it all wrong? So you're going to listen. This answer is going to change your Hanukkah, I believe. It changed it for me. It took me a long time to figure this out. So now we know that the world's resources are very limited. We know there's a finite, we can measure everything on Earth. It's not infinite. The amount of oil they had in that little pach shem, that little jug, was limited. It was enough for one night. But just like the last 200 years, the one thing that these economists did not take into consideration is something called resourcefulness. Not the resources, but how resourceful we would be in how we refine that energy. How are we using that one drop? I could stretch that one drop and no longer make it last for 13 years. I can make it last for 100 years. I have new technologies that allow me to take the little atoms within the fuel and expand it and use it in the most refined way where there's no more loss of energy. You see, imagine what you could do with limited resources, but an unlimited resourcefulness at your disposal. This is why, by the way, if you're following the stock markets today, the stock market's doing really well. And the reason why the stock market is doing really well, and it's going to, God willing, continue to do so well, is because we believe that with artificial intelligence, for better or for worse, however you understand it, we're going to figure out all of the issues. We're going to, just like we figured out COVID, hopefully, right? And we're going to figure out a way of, in a very short period of time, of editing our genes so it's no longer an issue. And this is the way we're going to deal with all of our issues moving forward. Very quickly, very fast. Why? Because of resourcefulness. The oil didn't expand and give us more quantifiable oil, I'm going to argue. But the real miracle of Hanukkah is that each drop of oil was burning to the most perfect, pristine amount it could stretching out to the point where it could last for 8 days. There was no extra oil. But if we could go ahead and refine the process, the miracle over there was the resourcefulness of the oil. Now it's expressing itself in its fullest potential without any loss of energy or heat. A perfect burn. And that was the miracle of Hanukkah. 1 jug of oil. 8 was not an increase in the fuel. It was just a refined expansion of the fuel. So you have Hallel and Hoda'ah. You have these miracles, right? The light and the war. Now, we give thanks because that's on us, right? We have to be thankful for these things. Now, but it wasn't an increase in material, right? It was a simple magician could go ahead and make 1 into 2, right? As a matter of fact, God has a limitless energy, right? And anyone could go ahead and take something and expand it. Eliyahu Hanavi does this. He takes oil and he expands it. But when we want to be grateful for things, right, we got to confess. And confession's not easy to us. To humble ourselves is hard, especially in a world where we constantly feel so entitled to everything. It's so difficult to go ahead and confess that in our own religion, there's only 1 day a year where we do it. It's called Yom Kippur. And we have to do it in a way where you got no food, you got to be stuck in Bet Knesset the whole entire day, you have 5 tefillot, and you're just focused on just saying, I'm sorry, I confess. It's 1 day a year we do it. That's it. We do it in our tefillot also, but not with the same intensity. It's hard for us to remind ourselves that we need to be humble, especially at a time where we feel like we are limitless. So much opportunity, so much abundance in the world today, so much amazing miracles that happen day in and day out for us. Now, let me ask you a question. You have something called responsibility versus obligation, right? If you believe that you are entitled to something, right? You're never going to say thank you. You're never going to go ahead and say, oh, thank you so much. I'm entitled to it. What do you mean? Like, I want this. And we're seeing this happen today. In America, we are dealing with a disease called entitleism, where everyone says, I'm entitled to everything. There's no thank you. There's just give me. But when you live in a world of responsibility and obligation, right? There's endless opportunities to feel a sense of gratitude. Many years ago, I took a group to South Africa, and we were on a mission, and we ended up in a small little village called Alexandria. You could Google it. It's in South Africa. It's right outside of Johannesburg, and it's a small town, a shanty town, about 300,000 people living there. They're all living in these tin containers that are about half the size of this. If you don't know this, but you may know that the life expectancy in South Africa is the lowest in the world. The life expectancy in South Africa is only 45. But most people in South Africa will not make it to their 46th birthday. In this particular town, it's a little bit lower. 80% of the people in this town have HIV. And it starts at a very young age. Now, when we visited there, we visited this little orphanage, we visited some of these little localities over there, but people aren't doing anything. They're just sitting on the side of the street. So I went over to the tour guide. I said, there's a tremendous amount of agriculture that could be happening over here. I imagine coffee fields, cocoa. I just saw like all this crazy opportunity. They're sitting on this amazing, rich, lush land. Why not cultivate it? So he looked at me, he took me to the side. He's like, listen, because of apartheid, these people feel that the white man should be paying for their troubles. So they're waiting to get reimbursed for all the years of apartheid. So they're not working. Right? When you feel entitled, you can't accomplish anything. You can't move. I visited a small town in Nicaragua with another group many years ago. And we saw this. Nicaragua has some of the most amazing views on planet Earth. Gorgeous, stunning. Landscape is beautiful. The earth is rich. The soil is rich. Coffee, cocoa, so much there. I asked them what happened here. Nah, they don't want it. They tried. They had these non-NGOs coming in and helping them build farming and so on and so forth. They just stopped. Someone else should do it for me. But that's not what Hanukkah was about. Hanukkah was about a small group of people that said, I need to take responsibility. You know what the limitation is? The limitation of resourcefulness is me. We're our own greatest enemy. We get in our own ways. We get in the way of ourselves. We create the stumbling block. We are the lifnei iver. We put it there for ourselves. And then the Maccabees are telling us, just like this nest of this special oil that expanded and grew, it was endless resourcefulness. If you focus on being resourceful, you could accomplish anything too. And in that space of feeling that sense of responsibility, and maybe a little humility, miracles will start happening for you too. Now, when you walk, someone once asked me, he says, Rabbi, why should I thank God for making me feel better? This happened not too long ago. He had COVID. He's like, why should I thank God? He's like, he got me sick to begin with. Like, why should I thank him? Right? Classic question. So, Rabbi, by the way, you're going down the elevator. Why? Could you just answer this question very quickly? So I'm like, okay. My very quick answer is, who says that you're supposed to be healthy? Who says that things are supposed to be good? Who says that's true? You think that everything's supposed to be perfect? Maybe you're not supposed to be healthy. Maybe you're not supposed to be here. Maybe it's supposed to be hard, and at the moments where it's good, you're supposed to be thankful for the fact that it's good. Maybe the contrast was there for you to sense a deep feeling, an emotion of gratefulness, and you missed out on it. Who says it's supposed to be good? Who says that the challenge is bad? But it's only through challenge that we grow. It's only through the difficulty and overcoming that difficulty of being forced into a position like the state of Israel that had no resources, a very limited amount of resources, and they turned it into this miraculous place. That is Hanukkah. That is Hanukkah. That is Jewish identity. That is the power of holding on to our Yahadut, our belief. Now, Hanukkah is a time for Hoda'ah. It's a time for Hallel. It's a time for praising and thanking God. It's a time where we go ahead and we light that little candle outside our door, because what Judaism is really saying, I don't want to put a light out that you can see. If you were really looking for something meaningful, you're going to look harder to find it. So what do? You put, for Sephardim at least, you put one menorah in the house outside your door, and that's it. You want to find depth? You want to find meaning? Are you looking for it? The whole idea of glitzing out your house is the exact opposite of what the Torah wants. Depth, beauty, light, kedusha is internal, it's inside. And if you're not putting in the effort to find it, you're going to miss out on it. On Chanukah, what do? We take a little Chanukah, take a little drops of oil, a little wick. That's all you need. And light it. That's you don't need this. You see these, they just put up yesterday, I think it was a 30-foot tall menorah. And I think it's beautiful, because I think we need to have those external, religious symbols for our generation. But I would love to create a contest, the world's smallest menorah contest. Right? Where you have these little miniature, like micro machine menorot. And because to me, where you could barely see the light flickering, where you have to take out a magnifying glass and to see the light. Because I believe that's what Hanukkah is. Hanukkah to me is the recognition that we have an infinite potential waiting there for us to draw into the world. Just like this oil expanded, all that was missing was resourcefulness. But it can't happen without the Hallel and Hoda'ah. Tonight we remember Edmond Safra alav hashalom. And he was an example of someone who used all of his resources to ensure that we as a community had the resourcefulness to continue building, giving, creating, and celebrating the most richest way. Thank you so much for listening. Wishing you all a happy, happy Hanukkah.